So today we are go will be so today we'll be discussing about event based trigger. Okay, so on the trigger side, uh, we discussed about scheduled and tumbling trigger. Okay, so now let's deep dive into event based trigger. So event based triggers are event based triggers are nothing but you will let's say let's take an example of any real time scenario, right? For the same, let's say you're connecting you're expecting a employee or sales data from a source system, and you know what time it comes, and you know what time the data is available for the job to pick up. So all the stuff is available, but some of the scenarios where the file arrival is there is no time bound. So the customer says that, hey, I don't know when the file comes, when my job runs, when it will generate that file into blob. We don't know. So those scenarios, right? But in those scenarios, we need to get the data to our ADF, and then um, we need to process that. We cannot leave that data alone. So in those scenarios we need to do a event based triggers. So event based triggers is basically a integration scenario where there is a requirement to trigger the pipeline based on certain events. Whether, okay, if a new file comes, I want to trigger my pipeline, or something is deleted, I want to trigger my pipeline, right? So those based on the event, the action can take it, the action can trigger automatically. Okay, so that is what called event based triggers. Now EDF also provides integrate um, Azure Event Grid. So Azure Event Grid is a cloud-based service from the Microsoft Azure, where it tracks certain events across the organization level, and takes the and provides the ability to connect to the event grid and take action to the different services. Okay, basically event grid is a kind of a service that tracks events happening across the board. For example, if a manufacturing, let's say that take an example of Coca-Cola, right? So you're dealing with a customer of Coca-Cola who is manufacturing the cold drinks. Okay, so now in a manufacturing scenario, think of how many events could be generating in a day. For example, some raw material arrives, there is an event, so that event is helpful for the in the manufacturers. If somebody is waiting for a raw material, he can take an action on that. Okay, once the raw material is processed, there could be another event, and once the labeling is done, it's another event. On the bottling packaging is done, another event, right? So these are all the events when you think of a scenario where in a real time. Okay, for example, let's say you're dealing with a Toyota kind of a car manufacturing customer, right? There could be hundreds of events. Simple, take it for Toyota, as I mentioned, Toyota, right? So it's in a manufacturing kind of an scenario, there could be hundred of events getting generated every day, and those events being consumed by others to take another action, right? For example, your body part, you're manufacturing a car, and the body is available. Then, okay, the body is available, what next? The next guy can take read that event and take action on that, right? So this is where Very important to consolidate all the events getting generated out of an organization, so that the consumers can subscribe to those events and they can take action out of that. Okay, so Microsoft Event Grid is a service. Okay, is available to track and consolidate all the events, and the consumers can subscribe. And if somebody is required, and they can subscribe to those events, and they can take an action out of that. Now ADF also from Microsoft, so it's already tightly integrated with Azure Event Grid. So which will basically triggers the pipeline automatically when a file arrives into a blob storage. Okay, so now let's deep dive and see how it happens. Now, so if you look into our pipeline, this is the similar structure of our pipeline. Okay, so the CSV5 arrives into blob storage, and immediately it generates an event out of blob storage and stores the event into event grid. Okay, and the event grid automatically is when the event happens, it automatically ADF triggers the pipeline. Okay, so this is the typical flow how the event based trigger works. So when you do that, okay, so now there are two properties that the event based trigger generates. One is the trigger body and the followed by the file name and the trigger body dot folder path. Okay, these are the two properties that generates out of this. So we will do it. We will use this file name and folder name to parameterize our pipeline, and which can be triggered automatically based on that event. Okay, so let's quickly do a demo. So as you can see, I have a already we already were dealing with this storage account. Okay, so what we will do is uh, so under demo training, we have employee sample, right? So the ask is whenever the employee sample file comes to blob storage, the pipeline has to trigger automatically, which basically copies this to a different storage or the SQL database. Okay, so now we already have this. Let's go to pipeline. Okay, so pipeline. Let's create a new one. Okay, so now I need two data sets and one link service to connect to the blob storage, and then create an event basting. Okay, so now let's create a new link service. So always best practice to test the connection before we connect to the link service, to the blob storage, and just create it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So now let's go and create two data sets. All right. So we know we already have this. Okay. So now see this data set accepts employee CSV dot employee sample dot CSV, right? Which is a kind of a manual. Now we don't know when that file name that comes, and when the file comes to blob storage automatically, we don't know the file name, right? So we wanted to pass that file name as a parameter. Okay, so let's create a parameter and pass this to as a parameter. See, if you hard code the file name, when you run the pipeline, it accepts it accepts the file name, right? It assumes the file is there. But in our case, we don't know. We wanted to trigger the pipeline when the file comes. Okay, so it's better to pass that as a parameter. Okay, so now let's create a new one. So this is output for output. We can use same yeah, even block. Okay, so here also the same thing. Don't want to hard code the file name, and we wanted to pass as a parameter. Okay, let's publish. Okay, good. We are good with the publishing. Now let's get a simple pipeline. Which copies the data from a input to output. Simple. Okay, there is no uh, complexity or anything. Okay, copy CSV. Which one did you create just now? Okay, so see, since we parameterize it, as we you can see when we use it, automatically it asks to pass a file name as a value. Okay, so now to do that, let's at the para a pipeline level also just create a parameter. Okay, and pass that pipeline parameter as a okay. Since we have a CSV, let's use a wildcard CSV. Similarly, sync also. So okay, so now done. Okay, so we created a source sync and then we attach it to the we created a parameter pipeline parameter in the pipeline level, and we pass that parameter to this file name because we don't know what the file name could be when it will arrive. So it's better to parameterize. Okay, so now quickly validate all good and publish this. All right, publish successful. Now we don't want to run this debug or anything. We wanted to trigger whenever the file arrives into the storage, right? So add a trigger now. Okay, create a new trigger. Okay, so this is a trigger event remove, which is a storage event. Okay, so if you have more blobs and you want to give the name as begins with and all, you can use those wildcard sets as well in terms of the blob name. Okay, now we wanted to the event is whenever the blob created, right? So whenever the file arrives over here, we need to trigger the pipeline. So whenever the blob created, and by default let's leave as is. See, so when you create, whenever you try to create event based trigger, so the based on the storage account details that we gave just before, it's automatically detecting that okay, there is a one matching uh, blob name is available. Um, so the process accepts this as a input, and then whenever the file arrives, this will be automatically triggered. Okay, so now let's continue. So now you see we have parameterized this one, right? So we wanted to pass a file name as well. Now remember when we are doing um, so the trigger body, it gives you the event when the event creates, and it gives you the property as trigger body dot file name. So this file name we can use. Okay, so just use that file name and click on OK. Okay, so validate and publish. So we have created a trigger event demo. So now go to manage and see the event demo we just now we created, which is in a started status. Okay, which is attached to the pipeline 4. Okay, now let's see. Let's add the pipe file over here. Okay, so I'm uploading that file again. Okay, employee sample. Okay, so now let's go back and see our pipeline. You see the pipeline 4 just got triggered. So we just created a pipeline 4, which is based on the event trigger event demo. Okay, now just got triggered automatically when I copied when I copied the blob to the storage. See, successful just now 881. It just got triggered. So I have another pipeline also based on the same trigger. So it's also got triggered, but that's okay. Uh, but the pipeline 4 is what we just created and we triggered automatically when the event happens. To when the file arrives to the blob, the event automatically created, and ADF uses that event to trigger the pipeline. You remember, so when we copied to the container, the event been created and the event been stored in event grid. So once the event grid have so we already stored created in the event grid, it automatically, since there is a already ADF is integrating with event grid, so it's automatically triggered that pipeline based on that event. Now, so there is a catchy over here. So you remember we were saying that event grid automatically uh, integrating with the ADF, right? So what you can do is go to uh, when you go to your subscription, right? So when you're working with your free account, right? So the integration, you need to register the event grid service in your subscription. Okay, without that you cannot publish and you cannot use the event based ticket. So what you can do is to do that, go to your subscriptions. Okay, and you can see over here settings, resource providers. You can see resource providers. Okay, so when you see when you're using Azure Data Factory, all the resources whenever you created, right? So those providers are already registered. For example, my Data Factory, storage, security, advisor, SQL. So all these are the different providers that are required to run the ADF. Okay, so when you do that, automatically these all will be created. Okay, so but the one Microsoft Event Integrity is what is required for when you run the event-based tickets. Okay, so in that case, what you can do is simply by default it won't be there, so you have to register manually. So what you can do is you can filter over here Microsoft. You will get it Microsoft Event Grid. Okay, select that, and then you can see there is I already registered, so it's coming as a register. But in your case, it should be appearing as just register button, and just a few buttons, a few clicks. You can register. That's it. You just click on the register. It will be registered. That's it. See, it's going to be added to your subscription. That's it. Just one click, is going to be registered. Okay, so that's the power of event based trigger. Hope you get it. Just um, let me know if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask in on the event based triggers. Any questions?
So basically, we are scheduling the triggers uh, even without our knowledge. If the files comes, how to copy from the blob to ADF, right?
Right. So in real time, there could be a scenario, right? You don't know what time the file comes, what time the file arrives to your blob storage. You don't know, right? In such scenarios, if you want to run your pipeline automatically without your intervention, whenever the file comes, so that's where the event-based trigger will come into picture.
Okay, sir.
All right. So with that, I think the triggers is completed, and we discussed how schedule and tumbling works. And in today's session, we also discussed about the event-based triggers. Okay, so now move on to our next one is uh, mapping data flows. Okay, so what is mapping data flow?
So once class is finished, can you share this slides so it will help us to remember the.
Yeah, so slides basically the same content which we are talking in the video also. It's been with the video also, it's coming up, right? So if you go just through the slides, you may or may not understand. But what I would recommend, the go through the entire video again and again. So in the video, you will see both slide as well as the comment running commentary also. So that's where you will be able to understand it quickly.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. So mapping data flow is a way to transform data at scale without any coding required. So remember when we discussed about uh, uh, the introductory about Azure Data Factory. So we've been told that it's a cloud-based ETL tool where you can drag and drop and you can do the transformations, right? So if you in the ETL, if you understand extract and load. So far we've been extracting the data from different services, for example, blob service or different connecting to different sources, either blob service, SQL database, and then again loading to the another destination, which is again blob storage or the SQL database, right? So we know what sources to connect, how to connect to the sources. And also once you connect to the sources, we have different activities to deal with the source files, whether the file is there or not, whether to loop through the files, whether to copy, whether to delete, and so on and so forth, all the activities we discussed, right? So now, okay, so the source you identified, the file has came to a blob storage and is available. Now, in many cases, 90, 95, 95% of cases, the source data cannot be or will not be able to use as is by the destination. You had to do the some kind of a transformations in between. You need to run some kind of a transformations in between to fit into the target model. Okay, so in those scenarios, in those situations, you had to do the transformations. You had to run the, you had to transform the data in a such a way that that is required by the reporting system. Okay, so that is where the mapping data flow comes into picture. But to do the transformation, if you come from SSIS background kind of a thing, you had to write a lot of coding. It requires a lot of coding required to transform data from one stage to another stage. But mapping data flow allows you to, without any coding required, you can transform the data as well. Okay, and so there are a series of transformations Azure Data Factory provides. You can use them to copy the data from a in a required format. Okay, so now what is transformation? What do you call a transformation? For example, let's say that I'm getting a employee data. I'm also getting the department data. Okay, so let me go back to an example. Okay, so in my employee data, I have employee ID, name, salary, department number. Okay, and I have another file which basically contains just the department number and department name. Okay, so let's set an finance 20 marketing. Okay, so I have both employee. Sorry. So as you can see, employee data where the department ID is there, and also I have a department data where it denotes what is the department names. Okay, since there is no name over here, so the output I wanted to require is, now I wanted employee ID, name, salary, and department name. Right, something like I needed in my output. So how do we achieve this? So I'm getting a employee data where the department number is there. There is no department name over here, right? And again, department data, I have a just department name. There is no employee data over here. So it's to achieve these kind of a things, this kind of a situation where I need employee ID, name, salary, and department name. So I need three columns from here and one from here. So in these kind of scenarios, you had to do a transformation. You had to run the transformation to join these two data sets and then come up with an output, right? So this is where this kind of situation where you have a mapping data flow transformations are required. Okay, and another situation could be, so I have a let me do that. So I have a 10 employees, for example. So and you can see one, two. There are two employees with department 10, and again one, two, three. Three employees from department 20, and rest all from department 30. Now I wanted to generate three outputs based on the department. For example, department, all the department 10 employees should be in one extract, and department 20 could be in another extract, and department 30 could be in another extract, and the rest all could be in another extract. Right. So these kind of transformations are required when you're dealing with real-time scenarios. So to do that, you need to write the transformation. That is where the mapping data flow will come into picture. Okay. So now, as part of mapping data flow, you have so many data flow actions available that we can leverage in our day-to-day activities. For example, you can see join, conditional split, how we can split how we can join the two data sets based on the key columns, and how we can conditionally split the data, right? For example, the same example, I want department 10 should be in one extract, department 20 in an extract, right? So those scenarios, how do you do that? And exis, union, lookup. So these are all, based on the input or output, we can use these actions. Now there are certain schema modifier, right? So I wanted to have a derived column. Let's say I am getting a, as part of employee data, I'm getting employee salary and bonus. So I wanted to add another column as a derived column, which is the total, which should be calculated on the fly, right? So or just I just need to select the required data from my um, data set. I don't want to select all the data that is coming from source. I want to do a required columns, or I want to aggregate in certain the same example. I wanted to get the salary at each department level. Okay, so all the schema modifier for, actions are also available, and also the individual role. Let's, as I mentioned, if you can filter the data, you can sort the data in a way you want. Okay, for example, you want higher salary people, higher salary employees come first, and followed by the lowest salary. So all of these filtering, sorting, altering the record, all this can be done through these actions provided by mapping data flow. All right, so let's quickly do a quick exercise on that. So let me go to my Azure Data Factory. Okay, so now, if you see, when you come to author and monitor, you can create a pipeline and all, and you can see there's a data flow. As you can see, the option to create a data flow. Okay, so let's do that. Now, when you create any data flow, automatically it will come as a um, this visualizer diagram where you can add the sources. Okay, so let's add a source. Now, when you'll be adding a source, you can see it will ask you certain details. It will ask you the name and what kind of source you're adding and the data set to point to the respective source. Okay, so now let's quickly do. Uh, so I want to copy this to my blob storage and then create a data set. Okay, so I copied the both employee as well as department data. So now quickly create a new data set. Okay, so we have already so many link services are there. We can just reuse the existing one. Okay, so now, okay, employee data. Let's do that. Okay, create another one. See, guys, the reason I am creating to familiar with you with the data set and uh, link service. These are the building blocks, right? So, department CSV. So when somebody asks or when somebody to do something immediately, you should be able to create link service and data services, and it should be always on top of your mind. You should not be scratching your mind of how to create, and so you should not be coming up with questions how to create, and if created this way what will happen. So those kind of things you should not be coming up with. Okay, that's why practice, practice, practice. Create as much as possible. Okay, so it's not allowing. Create as much as possible link services and all. Okay, that is the reason every exercise I'm going to I'm be creating a new ones. Why? Because I want you to familiar with that. Right? Otherwise, I could have used the existing one simply and run through the workflow, but that would not help much by learning, right? So now give a name. Okay, employee department. Okay, now I'm using a data set. Now you can see the data sets just now we created. Okay, so which is pointing to employee data. Now, as you can see here, couple of options you have. Okay, so as you can see, allow schema drift and infer drifted column types and validate schema. So all these options we will discuss in next class. Okay, for now allow drift schema. So I want you to try what is schema drift. Okay, if you have had, or you're new to this term schema drift, go and read some online stuff before coming to tomorrow class. Okay, we are going to discuss all the options. Okay, so now add another source, which is uh, department, right? So this is department. Okay, so now we have added two source. See, one is employee and one is department. So now if you click on this, that you can see all the options are coming. You can join, you can do conditional shift. The just before what we discussed, everything is coming out here. You can do the schema modifiers, you can do formatting, you can do row modifiers, and everything is coming out, and we can use these activity actions, and then we can transform the data it's required in the such a way that makes sense. Okay, so now come up with we'll do in next class what all these tomorrow we are going to do all these five activities together. Okay, I don't want to split this, do one this way, one tomorrow, one a day after, something like, because all these are together and it makes sense to learn together all these five activities at a time. But to do that, I want you to come up with the settings. What is schema drift? Okay, what is infer, what is the term infer, right? So what do you mean by infer? What is mean by schema drift? You need to read through and come to tomorrow's class. Okay, whatever it may be, whatever you understood, don't worry. Do some homework before we start tomorrow's class. Make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all for today. So today we covered about event-based trigger, how to create an event-based trigger, and how the event grid also we will learn a bit, and then we also touched upon the mapping data flows. Okay, so tomorrow we will deep dive into mapping data flows, and we'll cover the all the five the input and output modifiers tomorrow, and then accordingly the next classes also.
Okay, sir, I have one concern.